In today's segment, we're going to learn about a new innovation, a draft survey tool, or DST, and the DST Lite. To help me, I'm joined by Harit Solaci, SGS's Minerals Global Field Services Manager and the Innovation Coordinator for Spain, who's also the inventor of the DST. Welcome, Harit.
Thank you, Teddy. Thank you.
Let's get right into it. Since we're talking about the draft survey service, and you used to be an inspector yourself, can you tell us a little bit about what this job entails and some of the biggest challenges?
Sure. So it is true that I started my career as inspector in SGS Minerals, and I have to perform many draft surveys during these 10 years of my life. So as you can imagine, I have to read the draft marks in my life, a lot of draft marks in my life, and sometimes in very challenging situations. So the draft reading is the most critical activity in the draft survey process. So answering your question, Teddy, there are two major challenges during the draft survey activity. As always, safety first. So sometimes vessel crew members and other party surveyors need to scale down ladders up to 17 meters during night wind and bad weather condition. So we also need to take sometimes the boats to make the reading of the drafts, and unfortunately not always in the best sea condition. So from accuracy point of view, the sea waves play an important role here. The draft reading is very challenging. In some cases, we must make the reading in waves of sometimes higher than 2 meters.
Wow, that sounds so challenging at times. And can you briefly explain for those who might not know what a draft survey is?
Okay, so I will try to keep that part as simple as possible because we can spend hours and hours speaking about that. So the purpose of at the end of the draft survey is to determine the weight of cargo loaded or unloaded from or to a vessel. So the surveyor must weigh the vessel at empty and load condition. So to do so, we need to read the six draft mark painted around the vessel. So by reading these six miracle numbers, and by doing accurately, we will be able to determine the total cargo loaded in or unloaded from the vessel or to the vessel.
And by inventing the DST, you solved some of the biggest problems that existed in the draft survey service space and a process that had been in use for about 100 years. Can you talk about what some of the biggest issues you solved with the DST were?
Yeah, so in my inspector edges, as I told you before, I don't see myself doing that job in my old age. So I say, okay, if I improve the technology, I was going to help my colleagues and the results in all the ports around the world. So I say, okay, so why don't I start thinking and working on this project and try to find a solution. So it took me about 2 years to reach the goal, but at the end we arrived to the point. And as I explained before, the biggest problem was the accuracy, but there was also issues of inspector and vessel crew safety. So the DST device will allow us to be accurate and also to be safe, which is at the end very important. So the accuracy is critical, but just to put you in context, a deviation of 1 centimeter of draft reading miscalculation, it could it could result in 100 metric ton of shortage, who at the end obviously it impacting the pocket of the shipper of or the buyer of the cargo that is carried by the vessel. So at safety point of view, the usage of boats and leather are not needed with the DST. So we can make the reading directly from the vessel deck, and and this will allow us to work safe. At the end is the goal.
And Hurts, when you invented the DST and you started to deploy it in the field, I'm curious that you realized that there were other challenges that the DST couldn't solve. I'm curious what you did then.
Yeah. So when we deploy the DST, I traveled to many countries just to train our employees in the usage of this new technology, who is the DST. And one of the visited country was the US in 2018, I think. And after some productive tests in big vessels in Mississippi River, so the branch manager of Louisiana asked me to perform the test in and use the DST in push barges. And honestly, I'm from Spain, so I never perform a draft survey in a barge. So it was funny because when I arrived to the barges and I see the separation or the space that they are between barges, that they are sometimes up to 1-2 inches, it makes impossible to use the DST. So, and after some homemade prototypes and other additional travel to the US, I come back to them with a device that we call him DST Lite. So you can see it here in the screen. It's very small. You see here the name. So is like the little brother of the DST, and it's very small, and is connected with a phone. And by using the phone, we are able to manage all the operation inside of this small device. This device it will be very helpful in the drafting of coal and fertilized barges in Mississippi River.
Now, Haritz, you've been having this pilot project for the last 18 months in the US. What are your plans now?
Yeah, the U.S. team, as part of the pilot, they have been using, or let's put testing, the DST Lite for almost 1.5 years. But now in 2021, we are now in a deployment phase worldwide.
Well, thank you for joining us, Haritz, and congratulations.
Thank you, Teddy. Thank you.